Hey guys, Matty here from DCL Blog. I thought I'd make a video on how newbies get sort of wrecked and caught up with hype and how to, I guess, avoid some of the early pitfalls of being an investor or participator in the NFT ecosystem. So we're going to go through a few different projects. Now, they're not bad projects. Some of them are great projects, but wanted to look through different phases of the projects, because I think what happens is, as a newbie, you come into this space, you go, all right, well, what should I look at? What should I invest in? Where should I participate? And you look at a bunch of different projects and what they're doing, but no one really questions timing. Well, not many do. Not many people look at, okay, well, what's the right time to invest in said project? A project could be really, really good, but if the timing is not right, well, it will seem like a bad investment, right? So we'll look at Bored Ape Yacht Club first. If you look at Bored Ape Yacht Club, done exceptionally well. Definitely a very iconic project of 2021. Probably the most iconic project of 2021. Currently at an 87 ETH floor price. I think some of these apes have sold for millions, even all the way up to 5 million, I believe. If you go to activity and we zoom out, you can see it's pretty much been on a very steady growth phase for quite a long time, right? It's grown, had a bit of a drop back, grown. So, if you invested at a very early stage, you would have done extremely well. But still, there were parts of the project where you would have invested, or some people would have invested and sold because they thought they bought the top, or sold at a loss because they felt it was dipping in price at a level which they thought was a bit too much. So we see this big spike over here. It touches something like 66 ETH average price. Then we drop all the way back down to 33 ETH. So it goes down a big 50% on whoever bought it at, say, 66 ETH or a price like that. And then from there, we go all the way up to 125 ETH. We're dropping a little bit back down to 88 ETH. Will this continue to stay at this price? Will it go higher? Generally speaking, the higher the price goes, the more difficult it becomes to double that price, because it starts to hit a different tier of investors. There's a lot more people that can participate when it's 8 ETH or 5 ETH or 1 ETH. There's a lot less people that can participate. There's a lot less buyers demographic wise in the NFT space that can participate at a level of 120, 130 ETH plus. That's $500,000 plus. There's a lot less people that can do that. So it'll take usually a longer time if it does get there. But anyway, I think, looking even at Bored Apes, if you would have bought at certain times, and I think what happens is people get really caught up with Twitter hype, and they also get caught up with fear. There's two sides of this, right? So let's look at some other projects. So Mechaverse, a massive hype. People were super stoked at the quality of art that was coming in. It opened, it got a lot of FUD, predominantly because people thought that the mechas looked much the same. There wasn't much difference in the mechas. There wasn't anything. I mean, some of the stuff that they showed was super cool, but I guess the majority of people that revealed their mechas sort of saw bland colors and things that looked very similar to each other. Like this one looked similar to this. These two look somewhat similar. I mean, like on first glance, right? Seeing it from far away. Of course, there's some differences, but there weren't enough differences to make them iconic. So super fudded and went down. But if you sort of look at the mechanics as how a lot of, the factor that contributed the most to this, it was that Twitter super hyped it. People on Twitter and everyone wanted to be part of it. And then it got dropped because, well, no one started talking about it, and people started to reject the project holistically on Twitter. And now we're sitting on about 1 ETH average price, about 5 to 10 to 15, 20 for sale. We'll look at another project. We've got Hape Prime over here, which is a recent one. I mean, they haven't had that much time to do the thing, but this was another super hype project, 6 to 7 ETH or even 8 ETH almost average price. I think after reveal it dropped down to about 2.2 ETH. Let's see what the floor is today. It is 2 ETH, so about 2 ETH floor, right? And then you have Treeverse, which nothing wrong with this project. In fact, a very promising project. I have quite a lot of this run by Loopify. And they're building sort of a 2D world where you can use the avatars, you can build on your virtual land, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you zoom out, I love zooming out, you can kind of see the different hype levels. So every time this has happened, this spike has happened, usually it's a result of an announcement or Twitter hype, or people have gone Twitter crazy, and it's got the spotlight of Twitter, the Twitter community, where people have started to pay attention. And at that point, everyone kind of rushed in to buy at the same time. So usually when there's a mad rush for those NFTs, and in a short period of time, you get something like this. But inevitably, just like memes, just like viral tweets or viral moments, YouTube videos, fashion, there's a viral moment, and that moment, that phase dies down over time, right? Inevitably, that's what happens. People get bored, they move on, they look at something else. Something else catches the spotlight. So there's always going to be, when this hype happens, there's always a dip, right? There's always something, you come off that hype. So when you're looking at these projects, you look at this price here, you got 1.6 ETH, it's dropped all the way down to 0.57 ETH. You've got 2.76 ETH, it's dropped all the way down to 0.75 ETH. There's a drop of 60 to 70%. In fact, even the Medikey, I mean, I'm not going to, nothing is... These are a lot of projects go through this. It's just the behavior of the demographics. So you got the Medikey. So let's open up the Medikey edition 4 all time, right? We sold 0.2 ETH, suddenly spiked to 0.4, dropped down to 0.25, then kind of went here, then kind of went back up to 0.4 ETH during the Australian Open. So some volume there, dropped a bit back down. It's currently 0.19 ETH. They're being sold for, so it's dropping a little bit, but you can also see there's some phases there, right? It dropped 50%. We're still building, so there's chances of these going crazy. So if you look at Eververse, this is pretty much the last project I'll look at. If you look at Eververse, which is quite an interesting one, I mean, there was not much hype around this project at the start. Not many people cared. I think I went in and bought 50 sometime last year. And then now, as of late, because they've been building and they've been releasing game trailers and footage of what you can do with these, and you can start to earn some sort of token or some sort of currency, you can start to see there's a lot more volume coming in. So although it was sort of forgotten about or not really picked up at the start, I didn't really have that much attention. It has it now because of the building that they've continued to do. So if you quickly just look at Eververse, so let me just quickly pull this up so you know what the heck I'm talking about. Eververse NFT. Okay, well, I think it's a Steam game where you can go in there and take your character and play different things. It looks like in here you can run around in your hoverboard. Different sort of experiences. So these are the avatars that you get. This one over here, there's races. It's pretty damn cool. I mean, it's a lot more than what you see in the NFT space, isn't it? So I think like these ecosystems, as they build, some of them keep building, some of them stop building. These graph trajectories go on to take their own sort of moves. It is interesting to see how they play out. Now, how does this relate to newbies and entering? Well, you vetted the project, you think it's really good, you're going to be part of it, okay, whether it be Eververse, Treeverse, something else, Mechaverse, whatever it may be. I think what's also important is also, how did you hear about that project? Is it at a time where it's super hyped on Twitter? Everyone's talking about it. Usually if you're getting in at that point, it's super risky. And you'll find, and this is a common mistake a lot of people do at the start, I made it at the start, is that you go in at that point and you find over time that you keep doing that, you're like, wait a second, this is just too hyped, right? You're getting in at a point where projects, whether it be the reveal or something that they're about to show, usually it's just too hyped and prices just cannot sustain themselves after that period, because remember, after hype dies down, so do prices. So usually what I do is I keep an eye on projects and look for those that are a little bit more established, or even those that are new but haven't hit the spotlight yet. So Eververse was a really interesting one where they had gameplay footage of people going around shooting each other, using these avatars like 8 months ago, 6 to 7 months ago, back when no one was doing this. And I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty good. People, I mean, like, this is a project where the people behind it seem to build. And I went there and I bought 50 of them at mint price. I think it was 0.08 Ethereum. Had to wait a pretty long time. I bought it. I just let them keep building. And now, I mean, 6 to 7 months later, although this says December 2021, I know for a fact that they've been going on for much longer than this. So they must have migrated contracts or done something. But anyway, right now they're sitting at 0.39 or 0.4 ETH-ish. Some of them are going for 0.6. Even some of them are going for about 1 to 2 ETH, I think, based on the class. So you got one that 0.75 ETH. Some even more expensive ones. So 1 ETH for this one's the laser eyes. 2.75. You got the I believe this is where is it? Celestial, right? There's the Celestial rarity where there's only 3% of them. There's only 277 of them. Anyway, this is not to talk about Eververse. It's to talk about like the investment timing, right? You're looking at something where no one's paying attention basically, but there's building happening where people will start paying attention at some point. That's really what you're looking for. And of course, you're looking for the point of you playing the game. Like for me, this makes sense because I used to play games like this, right? At some point I can use my avatar to play this, or people can borrow my avatar to play games like this. It makes sense to me. I can relate to it. I can see why there's value in it, right? So it is interesting, looking at the start. Even I think what a lot of people do is, oh, I missed the mint. Damn it, I missed the project. But what I do is, okay, I missed the mint. I missed the hype phase, but when it dies down at a point, are people paying attention to what's there to come? So one last thing I will mention is one thing that pretty much most of Twitter know that I'm doing, or those that are connected to me. They know that I'm acquiring or accumulating artifact space pods. So artifact space pods, in my view, are going to be the virtual land, or if not, they've been said to be the virtual land of Artifact Studio, which have made the CloneX ecosystem, and Artifact have said that they've got the pod ecosystem and they've got the CloneX ecosystem, and each will get different wearable airdrops or different items, and you'll be use the 3D model across both of them. So they'll be developing both ecosystems, and at 1.2 ETH, when CloneXs are 10 times the price of that, it seems undervalued. And the spotlight right now, I don't participate where the spotlight. So right now, everyone's going crazy about monoliths, because they're like, oh, it's Nike, they're going to do something cool, it's going to be revealed in there. And yeah, there might be something super, super cool, but I'm looking 10 years ahead, right? 10 years ahead, if Artifact Studio have said that these space pods are going to have value, then for me, those are what I would buy when no one's paying attention. So I'd look at the graph and say, okay, well, this was not a good time to buy it, so I did not buy it then. I buy it at these phases where it sort of died down a little bit and it's somewhat going stagnant, somewhat going sideways, right? So again, like, it's not so much the project, it's the project, yes, but it's also the timing, and the timing is important. So to summarize, you're looking for a project that is doing really good things, either right at the start, no one's paying attention, or after a hype phase, no one's paying attention, or it's different NFT within that ecosystem that no one's paying attention to. So it's also something that personally I look for relating to it, because therefore I'm not speculating, oh, there's a demographic over there that will appreciate this. I know that I am the demographic that does appreciate this, so other people will also appreciate this, and that's what I sort of invest in or also participate in. So CloneX for me was a no-brainer. I mean, totally vibed with the Yu-Gi-Oh references, the Trunks hair references, all of these small things. I mean, big part of my childhood, so it had references, an art style that I could connect with, and that's why this made sense to me. This makes sense to me. Bored Ape Yacht Club, it doesn't make sense to me because I can't relate to Bored Ape Yacht Club. That doesn't mean it's a bad project. It's a freaking amazing project. I just can't connect with the art style or what that line of building is doing, right? It's just not my thing. A graph that I put out a while ago, so NFT Twitter hype cycle. So early investors and traders accumulate cheap. So a lot of people buy really, really cheap. They hype it hard on Twitter. So this is sort of like the influencer hype cycle, right? So they buy a lot of stuff and no one's paying attention. They use Twitter and social media and YouTube to make people pay attention and kind of hype it on Twitter. And they start selling as people come in, and demand really slows down. So they sell more and more and more. And then they got kind of, okay, well, not many people are buying at all, so let's just sell pretty much all of it. And then you get a price like this. And then so a lot of people so the influencers sell most of their position. And then two scenarios play out. Either the project is actually a good project and people catch on and the price goes back up, or it was always a shit project and it goes back down because influencer It's kind of done his thing, is hyped it, people got excited, but it had no founding team behind it that built and drove value to it long term. I'm not talking about this doesn't happen over a 2 to 3 week process. This happens over probably like a 2 to 3 month process, if not longer, right? Sometimes it goes sideways for a very long time because people are just heads down building. But yeah, just some words on hype and how that influences newbie decision, and how you should sort of be aware of getting too hyped or too caught up in something. And on the flip side, being too fearful. Like sometimes it is a really good project, but people are saying, oh, it sucks, I'm getting out, and all the Twitter's hating it. But you know what? Decentraland, and this is the beauty about being quite early to the NFT space, is you've seen projects that were hated on pick up. They've done well. So Decentraland, I remember opening day one of its open day 2 to 3 years after they announced Decentraland, they actually opened the doors where you could actually go in the virtual world, and people hated it. I mean, it was low poly, it was laggy, it broke, it halfway through quests, it kind of, it just like shut down and all that stuff. So now we are way beyond that. So there was a dev team behind all that wanted to make it a success and continue to build and make it better. And at the end of the day, that's what mattered. So now 4 years later, 5 years later, there is something that people value a lot more than they did on that open day on Feb 2020. So, we're looking at all sorts of things. And as a newbie, this may be, well, obviously it is new to you, but it might be quite turbulent. But in time, you'll get an intuition into things. You'll be like, wait a second, there's unnecessary FUD on this project where people are selling, but the team behind it, and that they will deliver on a project. The project will look much better 3 to 6 months down the line. The stuff in the works that people are not paying attention to, etc., etc. You can make decisions based on that. So anyway, hope this has helped you in some way or form. If it has, please share, and I'll speak to you guys in another video. Take care.